Onika and Aziel appeared to be the perfect couple in Oberland. They had built a life together, one filled with love, laughter, and dreams of a better future. Onika was the kind of wife every man wished for, loyal, hard-working, and always standing by Aziel, no matter the struggles. She believed in his potential more than he did himself, supporting him financially and emotionally while he chased his ambitions. She worked long hours, managed their home, and made sacrifices, all in the name of love. Aziel, however, was never satisfied. He was always looking for something more success, more recognition, more admiration. When he joined an exclusive gym, his priorities began to shift. Fitness became an obsession, but more than that, he craved the status that came with being part of an elite social circle. He started spending hours at the gym, pushing his limits, not just to stay in shape, but to earn the admiration of those around him. That was where he met Zahara. Zahara was young, energetic, and full of life. As a trainer, she knew how to motivate people, and Aziel was drawn to her charm. She admired his discipline, his ambition, and the way he carried himself. Unlike Onika, who had been with him through his struggles, Zahara saw him as a man on the rise, someone who had the potential to be great. Her attention made him feel powerful, like he was finally becoming the man he was meant to be. What started as casual conversations after workouts soon turned into late-night texts and lingering glances. Aziel convinced himself it was harmless, but deep down, he knew he was standing at the edge of a dangerous choice. At first, the changes were subtle, small shifts in behavior that Onika tried to ignore. Aziel started coming home later than usual, claiming his workouts were getting more intense. His phone, once left carelessly on the table, was now always in his pocket or face down. He became distant, his once affectionate words turning into distracted nods and short replies. Onika told herself it was just stress, that every marriage went through phases. But deep inside, a cold fear began to settle. Nights became lonelier as Aziel found more excuses to stay out. "I need to be dedicated if I want results," he would say, brushing off her concerns. But dedication to what? His fitness, or something, or someone else? Onika started noticing the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his clothes, the way he smiled at his phone, completely lost in his own world. The man who once couldn't go a day without holding her was now a stranger sharing the same roof. She tried to talk to him, to bring him back to the love they once shared. "Aziel, we don't even talk anymore. You're always at the gym or on your phone. What's going on?" Her voice was laced with desperation, but he barely looked up. "I'm just focused on myself right now. You wouldn't understand," he replied, his tone cold, dismissive. The confirmation came one evening when she followed him. She had never been the type to invade his privacy, but something inside her snapped. She watched from a distance as he walked into the gym, only to slip out the back moments later, with Zahara by his side. They laughed, their hands brushing against each other, like it was the most natural thing in the world. It felt like a knife twisting in her chest. That night, she confronted him. "Who is she, Aziel?" Her voice trembled, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. He sighed, rubbing his temples like she was just another problem he didn't want to deal with. "Onika, listen, I've outgrown this marriage." The words cut through the air like a blade. "I need someone who matches my energy, someone who pushes me forward." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "After everything we've been through, after everything I've done for you." Her voice cracked, but he had already made up his mind. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, but his words felt empty. "But I can't stay in a place where I don't feel alive anymore." And just like that, he left. He packed his things within days, moving in with Zahara without a second thought. The home they had built together, the memories they had shared, it all meant nothing to him now. As he walked out the door, there was no hesitation, no last glance back. He was convinced he was stepping into a better life, one filled with excitement and passion. Zahara welcomed him with open arms. Her world was vibrant, full of people who admired him, who made him feel important. There were parties, expensive dinners, and the rush of a new beginning. Aziel believed he had upgraded, that he had left behind the dull predictability of marriage for something more exhilarating. He was finally living the life he thought he deserved. Meanwhile, Onika was left picking up the shattered pieces. The silence in their apartment was suffocating, the bed too big, the emptiness unbearable. She could still hear his voice in the walls, still smell his scent on his clothes that he had left behind. Nights felt endless, spent staring at the ceiling, wondering how love could turn to dust so easily. But as the days passed, the pain slowly turned into something else. A fire, a determination. She had spent years building him up, sacrificing her own dreams to support his. Now, she had to rebuild herself. She wasn't going to let his betrayal destroy her. If he had moved on, so would she, but on her own terms. Onika had never imagined a life without Aziel. For years, she had poured everything into their marriage, believing they were building something strong together. But now, she was alone, left to pick up the broken pieces while he enjoyed his new life. The apartment they once shared felt empty, every corner reminding her of what used to be. Nights were the hardest. She would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. She had given him her heart, her loyalty, and her years, only for him to throw it all away like it meant nothing. The pain was unbearable, but she didn't have the luxury of drowning in sorrow. Bills still needed to be paid, and survival didn't wait for a broken heart to heal. Aziel had been the main provider, and now, without his support, Onika was struggling. She took on multiple jobs, working long hours just to keep the lights on. She cleaned offices during the early mornings, worked as a cashier during the day, and spent her nights baking and selling homemade pastries. Every day was exhausting, but she refused to give up. With every sleepless night and aching muscle, Onika found something stronger inside her, a will to survive. She had spent too long depending on Aziel, believing he was the foundation of her life. Now she realized she was the foundation. She was the one holding everything together, and she would not let this break her. While she fought to rebuild her life, Aziel and Zahara were living in excess. They dined at expensive restaurants, went on weekend getaways, and showed off their luxurious lifestyle on social media. Aziel, blinded by the thrill of his new life, never stopped to wonder where all the money was going. Zahara loved the finer things, and Aziel was happy to provide. Designer clothes, gym memberships, high-end parties. He spent without thinking, convinced he was living the dream. Onika saw the pictures, the smiling faces, the perfect moments they displayed for the world to see. It stung, but she refused to let it break her spirit. She had learned something valuable. People who chase excitement often forget what truly matters. And one day, the glitter would fade. But she was building something real. What started as a way to survive turned into something more. Her small pastry business grew, her hard work paying off little by little. Customers loved her dedication, and word spread. She no longer had to work multiple jobs. Her own business was enough. Slowly, she started to heal. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She was no longer the woman Aziel had left behind. She was stronger now, wiser, and determined to never let anyone make her feel small again. Aziel had always loved being the center of attention. Ever since he left Onika, his life had become a performance, showing off his new relationship, flaunting his success, proving to everyone that he had upgraded. At the gym, he was admired. His dedication to fitness, his confidence, his flashy lifestyle, people looked up to him, and he thrived on it. But admiration is a fragile thing. It lasts only as long as you can keep impressing people. And Aziel was determined to keep the spotlight on himself. The weightlifting competition was his chance to prove he was stronger than ever. He had trained for weeks, pushing himself beyond his limits, determined to outshine every competitor. The gym was packed with people cheering, cameras rolling, excitement in the air. Zahara stood at the front, smiling proudly, ready to celebrate his victory. Aziel smirked, stepping onto the platform. This was his moment. The weights were heavier than anything he had lifted before, but he refused to show hesitation. He gripped the bar tightly, took a deep breath, and began to lift. For a moment, everything was perfect. The weight moved upward, the crowd roared, and Aziel felt invincible. But then, something snapped. A sharp, sickening crack echoed through the gym as pain shot through his leg like fire. He let out a scream, his entire body collapsing under the weight. The bar crashed to the floor, and the once cheering crowd fell silent. Aziel lay there, his face twisted in agony, clutching his leg as tears of pain blurred his vision. He had broken it, badly. At first, Zahara was there, holding his hand, whispering reassurances. She posted pictures from the hospital, calling him her strong warrior, soaking in the sympathy from their followers. But support quickly turned to frustration. Aziel could no longer train, no longer take her out to fancy places, no longer be the man she admired. He was stuck in bed, helpless and irritable, relying on her for everything. Medical bills started piling up. Without his usual work and sponsorships, money ran out faster than he had expected. Zahara, once sweet and loving, became distant. The late-night cuddles turned into cold silence. The affection faded, and then, one day, she was gone. Aziel came home to find her side of the closet empty, a simple note left behind. "I can't do this anymore. I need someone who matches my energy." The same words he had used to leave Onika. Reality hit him like a punch to the gut. He had nothing. No money, no home, no Zahara. The people who once admired him at the gym now avoided eye contact, whispering about how quickly his success had crumbled. He was no longer the man they looked up to. He was just another fallen star. For the first time since leaving Onika, Aziel truly felt the weight of his choices. He had traded loyalty for excitement, love for temporary pleasure, and now he was alone, broken, and out of options. The man who once thought he had everything now had nothing at all. Aziel sat in the apartment, his injured leg propped up on a pillow, pain shooting through his body with every small movement. The silence in the room felt heavier than ever. Just a few weeks ago, this place was filled with laughter, music, and the thrill of a life that felt unstoppable. But now, everything had changed. Zahara, the woman he had left his wife for, barely even looked at him anymore. At first, she had been sweet, caring for him, bringing him food, making sure he was comfortable. She would post pictures of him, calling him a fighter, a warrior, a man who would bounce back stronger. But as the days dragged on, her patience started to fade. The fun, exciting man she'd fallen for was now just a burden, a broken man who couldn't even walk on his own. Aziel noticed the changes in her, the way she sighed when he asked for help, the way she barely spoke to him anymore. She was always on her phone, always distracted, always in a rush to leave. "I have to train my clients," she would say, or "I need some fresh air." She started staying out late, coming home at odd hours, smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't his. One evening, as he sat on the couch scrolling through social media, he saw it, a picture of Zahara at an upscale restaurant, smiling across the table at a man he recognized, Kofi, a wealthy businessman who owned multiple gyms in the city. The caption read, "Dinner with the best." Aziel's stomach twisted. He wanted to believe it was nothing, but deep down, he knew. He had seen this before, how affairs started, how people pulled away when they found something better. After all, that was exactly what he had done to Onika. That night, Zahara came home later than usual. Aziel waited for her, his heart pounding. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice tight. She barely glanced at him as she tossed her purse onto the table. "Out. With Kofi," he pressed, trying to keep his voice steady. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "What do you want me to do, Aziel? Sit here and babysit you forever? You're not the man I fell for. You're not strong, not exciting. You're just stuck." Her words cut deeper than any injury ever could. Aziel swallowed hard. "I just need time," he said quietly. "I'll get better. I'll be back in the gym soon. We can—" She held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Aziel, listen to yourself. I don't want to wait around for some day. I need someone who matches my energy now." The words felt like a cruel echo of his own betrayal. The same excuse he had given Onika, the same justification he had used to leave the woman who had loved him unconditionally. Now, he was on the receiving end of that same coldness. The next morning, he woke up to suitcases by the door. Zahara stood there, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You need to leave," she said simply. Aziel stared at her, confused. "What? Where am I supposed to go?" She shrugged. "That's not my problem." Panic set in. "Zahara, please. I gave up everything for you. I left my wife, my home, and that was your choice," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "But I never signed up to be your nurse. I want more, Aziel. And you? You're just dragging me down." His heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to beg, to remind her of everything they had shared. But looking at her now, he realized something. She had never truly loved him. She had loved what he could offer, the excitement, the status, the luxury. And now that he was broken and useless to her, she was done. With nowhere to go, Aziel gathered what little he had and limped out of the apartment. The door shut behind him, and for the first time in his life, he had no one, no home, no love, no future. He had thrown away something real for something temporary, and now he had lost everything. Aziel sat on the cold pavement outside a rundown motel, his crutches resting beside him. The city that once felt like his playground now felt like a cruel maze, trapping him in his worst nightmare. His leg ached, a constant reminder of how quickly life had turned against him. Just a few months ago, he was on top of the world, strong, admired, living in luxury. Now, he had nothing. No home, no money, and worst of all, no one to turn to. His phone, the last thing he had left of his old life, sat heavy in his hands. He scrolled through his contacts, past names that once mattered, gym buddies, former clients, so-called friends, but he knew none of them would pick up. He wasn't Aziel the champion anymore. He was Aziel the failure, the broken man who had nothing left to offer. His finger hovered over a name he had tried to forget. Onika, the woman he had left without a second thought, the woman he had convinced himself was beneath him, the woman who had loved him in a way no one else ever had. Shame burned through him, but desperation was stronger. Taking a deep breath, he pressed call. The ringing felt like it lasted forever. He almost hung up, but then, "Hello," her voice, steady, calm. He could picture her standing there, phone to her ear, her face unreadable. He swallowed hard, his voice shaky. "Onika, it's me." Silence. A long, heavy silence. He could feel the weight of her thoughts, the memories she was sifting through. He wasn't sure if she would speak or just hang up. "What do you want, Aziel?" Her voice was cool, controlled. No anger, no sadness, just distance. Everything inside him screamed to be proud, to act like he was fine, but he wasn't fine. He was drowning. "I made a mistake," he admitted, the words feeling like glass in his throat. "I should have never left you." A dry laugh came through the line. Not cruel, not mocking, but filled with something worse. Understanding. "You finally figured that out," she said. His grip on the phone tightened. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I have nowhere else to go." He let out a shaky breath. "Please, Onika, I just need to talk. Just once." She didn't answer right away. He could hear the faint sounds of life in the background. Distant laughter, a ringing bell, the rustle of movement. She had moved on. She had rebuilt herself. And here he was, crawling back. Finally she spoke. "Meet me at Luna Cafe, tomorrow, noon." The line clicked. She was gone. But she hadn't said no. That was enough, for now. Aziel sat at a small corner table in Luna Cafe, his fingers nervously tapping against the chipped ceramic cup in front of him. The cafe was warm, filled with the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the quiet hum of conversations. Yet, despite the comfort of the place, he felt cold. His leg, still healing from the injury, ached with every small movement, but the pain in his body was nothing compared to the knot in his chest. Then, the bell above the door chimed. He looked up, and there she was, Onika. She walked in with quiet confidence, her head held high, her posture strong. She wasn't the woman he had left behind. No, this was someone new, someone powerful. She wore a crisp, elegant dress, her hair styled perfectly, her eyes sharp. There was no sadness in them, no anger, just an unreadable calm that made his stomach twist. She spotted him immediately, her gaze locking onto his. For a brief second, he saw something flicker in her eyes, a memory perhaps, but it was gone just as fast. She walked over, each step deliberate, and took the seat across from him. Aziel cleared his throat, struggling to find the right words. Now that she was here, his carefully rehearsed apology felt small, useless. She didn't look like a woman waiting for an explanation. She looked like someone who had already moved past him. "You look different," he finally said. She tilted her head slightly, a small smile forming at the corner of her lips. "And you look exactly the same," she replied. He flinched at her tone. Not cruel, not mocking, just factual. He was still stuck in the past, while she had clearly stepped into a better future. He hesitated, then sighed. "I made a mistake, Onika." She didn't react, simply stirring the coffee the waiter had placed in front of her. "I know," she said. "I knew it the day you walked away." Guilt pressed down on him like a weight. He had expected anger, maybe even tears. But this calm, this indifference, it hurt more than anything. "I was stupid," he continued, his voice raw. "I thought I was upgrading my life. I thought," he let out a hollow laugh, "I thought she was what I needed. But she left me the moment things got hard. And now I have nothing." She took a sip of her coffee, watching him over the rim of the cup. "That's not true," she said finally. "You still have exactly what you chose." Her words cut deeper than any insult could. He swallowed hard, staring at the table, shame burning through him. He had expected some part of her to still care, to see him in pain and feel something, pity, sympathy, even nostalgia. But there was nothing. She had closed the door on him long ago. "I miss you," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I miss us." She set her cup down gently, her fingers tapping against the porcelain. There is no us, Aziel, she said simply. There hasn't been for a long time. His chest tightened. Can we at least try? No. The finality in her voice shattered any hope he had left. She wasn't playing games. She wasn't trying to make him suffer. She had simply moved on. She reached into her bag, pulled out a few bills, and placed them on the table. That should cover your coffee, she said, standing up. Aziel looked up at her, desperation creeping into his eyes. Onika, please, she sighed, shaking her head slightly. You made your choice, Aziel. Now live with it. With that, she turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving him sitting there, alone. For the first time, he truly understood. Some losses are permanent. Onika poured her heart into her work, refusing to let the pain of the past define her. Every sleepless night, every tear, and every moment of doubt fueled her ambition. She had lost everything when Aziel walked away, but instead of drowning in sorrow, she built herself back up, piece by piece. She worked tirelessly, managing multiple jobs while investing in her small business. The days were long, the struggles relentless, but she refused to give up. Her business, once a desperate attempt to survive, soon flourished beyond her imagination. She started with selling handmade accessories, but with time and dedication, she expanded. She learned how to market her products, how to build a brand, and how to turn her skills into a thriving enterprise. Soon, her name became known in Oberland. People respected her, admired her resilience, and supported her journey. With success came confidence. Onika no longer felt the weight of betrayal pressing on her shoulders. The past that once haunted her became nothing more than a lesson. She no longer looked back with pain, but with pride. She had survived. She had thrived. Meanwhile, Aziel struggled. His leg healed, but his life remained shattered. Zahara was gone, his savings depleted, and the friends who once admired him had long disappeared. He tried to rebuild, but without Onika's steady support, he found himself lost. Job opportunities were scarce, and the flashy lifestyle he once boasted about had turned into a distant memory. He had traded loyalty for temporary excitement, and now he had nothing. One evening, Onika attended a charity event, invited as a guest speaker. She spoke about resilience, about turning pain into power, and about never letting betrayal break one's spirit. Her words resonated with the audience, earning her admiration and applause. Among the crowd was a man named Kelechi, a successful entrepreneur with a warm smile and kind eyes. He listened intently, drawn not just to her beauty, but to her strength. After the event, he approached her. "Your story is inspiring," he said. "You didn't just survive, you conquered." Onika smiled, her heart steady. "Pain teaches us things success never will," she replied. Kelechi admired her wisdom and resilience. They exchanged contacts, and over time, a genuine friendship blossomed. Unlike Aziel, Kelechi didn't see her as someone to support his dreams. He saw her as a woman with dreams of her own. He valued her mind, her strength, and her independence. And for the first time in a long while, Onika felt something she had forgotten: genuine happiness. Aziel, on the other hand, saw everything unfold from a distance. He saw the articles praising Onika's success, the social media posts celebrating her achievements, and the photos of her smiling beside Kelechi. Every image was a reminder of what he had lost, what he had thrown away. He wanted to reach out, to ask for another chance, but deep down, he knew it was too late. Onika was no longer the woman who waited for him. She was no longer the quiet, devoted wife who endured his neglect. She had become someone far greater, someone he could never have again. And so, he watched. From the sidelines, from the shadows, from a place where regret became his only companion. Onika, on the other hand, never looked back. She had already won. Aziel sat alone in a dimly lit cafe, staring blankly at his reflection in the window. He had once believed he was upgrading his life, chasing excitement and status, but now he had nothing. No love, no success, no future. Onika had moved on, thriving in ways he never imagined, while he was stuck in the wreckage of his own choices. He wanted to turn back time, to undo the betrayal. But life doesn't offer second chances for those who throw away what's real for something temporary. Onika, however, never wasted a moment thinking about him. She was too busy living, too focused on the future to dwell on the past. She had learned her lesson. Loyalty is priceless, and those who don't value it will always pay the price. Aziel had gambled with her love, and lost, and some losses can never be recovered. This is the price of betrayal. This is karma's justice. Never trade loyalty for temporary excitement. Some losses are permanent. Now what about you? Have you ever seen someone throw away something real for a fleeting moment of pleasure? Or maybe you've been in Onika's shoes, rising from the ashes while the one who hurt you watched from afar. Tell us in the comments. And before you go, make sure to watch our other powerful stories on the end screen. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss what's coming next.